Popcorn Poops is brought to you by Audible.com. Please visit audibletrial.com/popcornpoops for a free audiobook and a free 30-day trial of their subscription service. Audible is the internet's leading provider of audiobooks with more than 150,000 downloadable titles across all types of literature, including fiction, nonfiction, and periodicals. Audible.com is offering a free audiobook download to listeners of Popcorn Poops, along with a 30-day trial of their services. This week we're recommending Neuromancer by William Gibson, narrated by Robert Sundin. To download this or another audiobook of your choice, visit audibletrial.com/popcornpoops. Again, that's audibletrial.com/popcornpoops for your free audiobook.
We are the Popcorn Poops. Hey everyone, and welcome to Popcorn Poops, the best married couple movie podcast / commentary track hybrid audio program on the internet. My name is Dustin.
And I'm Jessica.
This month, our theme is anime films, and my pick for this week's episode is Mamoru Oshii's Ghost in the Shell from 1995.
If you are syncing this recording up to the movie, go ahead and start the film, and then press pause as soon as the first line of opening text completely appears.
It's time to start the movie. Syncers, press play at the beep after the countdown. Ready? 3, 2, 1. And just to start us off, I'm really sorry about that the weird syncing bit at the beginning. The version that we're watching does not have any vanity cards or anything like that at the beginning of the video file. So in the version we're watching, it's Japanese text at the beginning. There's like 3 or 4 lines of Japanese text, and they kind of like appear vertically. When the first one completely appears, if you have to roll back and do it again, I apologize. But when the first one completely appears, that's when you should have pressed paused. But yeah, this is the last movie of our anime month.
Yes, it is.
And I had not seen this movie in a really, really long time.
It's been
probably
a few years.
More than a decade for me, I think. And the thing that surprised me about this movie is how dense it is.
Yeah.
And not just thematically. I think it's fairly thematically dense. I think there's a lot of symbolism and there's a lot, and we're going to have a lot to talk about. But I think that mainly its plot is super dense. Mm-hmm. There's always new information being fed to you constantly.
You said it well. One of the rewatches we were doing where you were like, every single line of dialogue, like right now, we're not paying attention right now and we're talking over it. And because of that, we are missing stuff that they will not say again.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff. They do repeat certain super, super important things, but everything is pretty important. Everything's said, every line of dialogue.
Like they did say 2501 and they'll say that a couple times throughout the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
But so many times in this movie, you'll get a character's name only once. You'll get an important piece of information only once, and it's clouded in so much other heavy plot stuff that's going on that you're kind of like, okay, my brain can't catch up with this moment right now, so I'm just gonna assume that it's okay and I'll be fine. Exactly. And then you aren't. No, you better go back and catch your brain up. And
like we watched all of it yesterday together and made our notes and did all the stuff that we had to do, but I kind of ended up watching the movie basically a second time, like going through and writing my notes because I wanted to go back and make sure that I had all of these plot points figured out, because there are a lot of them. There's lots of pieces of little information that is kind of important to fully understanding the scope of the story. And I think everything checks out. Like there's lots of really great character motivation in this, and the plot's really interesting, and it's got lots to say about, AI and technology and how that relates to earth sciences and biological evolution and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Darwinism, that comes up a couple times. But yeah, it's I think it's a pretty dense movie and a kind of a perfect fit for Popcorn Poops because we like to talk about this kind of stuff.
We already missed one of the main themes that we'll be talking about again and again, I'm sure, is identity. And specifically, most people talk about this movie in terms of gender identity. At first, when I was rewatching this with that in mind, I was like, I don't know if I really see that so much. But then, of course, later in the movie, it's like glaringly obvious. So
it does definitely have kind of it does come from a place of understanding like cultural context. I wouldn't say that it's super heavily about gender identity, but more about just the general
identity, human
just
identity,
human identity,
Yeah.
and how that
and
works.
gender
But
plays into that.
Gender
so.
absolutely plays into that, and I think that it has kind of a feminist. I guess it understands feminist context because
Well, I mean, like in our first moment here with Kusanagi, Major Kusanagi, she's sitting up on the rooftop listening in on this conversation. She's about to dive in, and we just saw her assassinate someone. And right before she does that, I think it's Bateau who's talking to her.
Yes, Bateau is he's the big police guy that's got the little thingies on his eyes, the cybernetic eyeballs,
and the super blonde short hair.
Yes.
And I think it's him talking to her through her brain telekinesis, intercom, whatever it is that they use to telepathy. I mean, and it's him talking to her, I think, and he says something like, "There's a lot of noise in your brain right now," and she makes a joke about saying she's on her period.
Yeah.
And it's this kind of almost belittling, sort of sarcastic remark because she's a cyborg, so she obviously isn't going to have a period or anything. I mean,
right.
I don't know how this cyborg body works,
exactly,
but I can assume whatever it does is regulated in a way that takes away things that would be uncomfortable or unnecessary to a cyborg maintaining itself.
Superfluous pain and things like that.
Right.
Superfluous inconveniences.
It wouldn't put like hormonal imbalances in your brain to make you have noise in your brain once a month when you're a cyborg.
Of course
like that's not going to happen.
And I think that more importantly, it draws attention to, I mean, they don't say it explicitly, but the absence of a menstrual cycle in these cybernetic women,
affecting their identity.
That absolutely affects their identity. And like there's other like physical redundancies, like the fact that they have large breasts is I mean it identifies them, I guess, outwardly as a woman, but what makes them a woman versus what makes them a man is, as we come to understand, is not that different. Like it's more about the artificial intelligence inside them, the ghost as they call it in the movie, developing its own identity and understanding itself as, one gender or the other, or this kind of person or this kind of person. And she goes through, she has a lot of soul searching to do. And she does that for a lot of the movie, thinking about, whether or not she is really a real person with a real conscience and a real identity, or
if that part of her died long ago, as she puts it.
Exactly. Is this just a copy? Is this just a copy of what I once was? Or
before
something?
we're too far from it, the music here in this scene is really cool. The score,
whole soundtrack is
the whole
really great.
Soundtrack. It's Kenji Kawai.
Yeah.
And during this scene specifically, he used ancient Japanese for the lyrics. And what the lyrics actually are is it's a wedding song that's sung to dispel evil influences. Mm-hmm. So throw that in somewhere into all your themes and try and make sense of that somehow.
Yeah.
Because we definitely have a birth scene going on, but it's being played to a wedding song. And we definitely have themes of marriage and wedding and through the reproduction and stuff that goes on between Kusanagi and the puppet master at the end of the movie.
Who's
There's
our main
this merging
antagonist.
concept.
I mean, I guess he's the antagonist because his presence creates the conflict, but I think that we're ultimately meant to be kind of sympathetic toward the puppet master.
So. Yeah.
So the opening text of the movie we haven't talked about. The opening text says, in the near future, corporate networks reach out to the stars. Electrons and light flow through the universe. The advance of computerization, however, has not yet wiped out nations and ethnic groups. I think that's interesting because nations and ethnic groups, the reference there is ultimately, ways that we associate identity.
Yeah.
Right.
Variation, diversity.
Exactly. Like I'm a white man, or I'm a white American man. I mean, I think that actually that is the main topic of this piece thematically. And if I could add an addendum to that, it would be and gender identities. Like, as I just said, I'm a white American man. That's I mean, it's not uncommon to hear that line of
Right.
of identifiers
When you're describing yourself, how do you describe yourself?
Exactly.
And you say typically your race, your country, your nationality, and your gender.
Yeah. How would the police identify you if they
Right.
had to on site? So
A big white American man.
a big white American man. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that's the opening text gives us kind of a hint of what we're in for. But yeah, like in the first scene, of course, we had Motoko Kusanagi and her Section 9. She's a police officer for Section 9, which is a section of Newport City. And her partners, Togusa and Bato, we already identified Bato as the big guy with the little cybernetic eyes, and Togusa is the other guy who's got kind of a mullet. he is kind of rocking a mullet, is he not? So they go in and they infiltrate this building and assassinate a diplomat who's trying to help a classified programmer named Daita gain asylum and defect from the country.
But they don't know who that programmer is at that point. That's a revelation that happens later in the movie
Right.
to draw connections to all these people.
Yeah, exactly. So when Kusanagi shows up and she kills this guy Nakamura, who is the chief of Section 6, which is the section that they're actually in at the beginning, he has shown up and he kind of watches her assassinate this dude who's I get the feeling that everybody in this world is like at least partially cybernetic.
Most people have some sort of implant or replaced body part or something like that.
We learn that Togusa is mostly human. Yeah, and she kind of, I don't know, she makes a point, Kusanagi makes a point
Togusa being the guy with the long hair.
Mullet.
Yeah.
Mullet man. Yeah, she makes a point of pointing that out as though it's something that's strange. Like she says that he's only had some minor, like
that's why
brain
she chose
enhancements
him.
or something. And yeah, that's why she chose him, is because
be part of
we
her
haven't
team.
gotten there yet. Actually, I think it's the scene right after this. But yeah, she says that, you know, over specialization breeds weakness. So she wants a variable. She wants a random.
And again, talking about
element.
evolution, about
Exactly.
adding variety into. We also, the other theme that we haven't delved into yet that we already have allusions to and stuff is in the beginning, that birth scene was also a dream sequence. That was the interpretation I took from it
Yeah,
is that it was
definitely.
her dreaming of her own cyborg birth, of when she got her cyborg body. And dreams and memories and stuff like that are repeatedly talked about in this movie because it has to do with how those things affect our identity again. Here's Togusa.
Yes, this is Togusa, who's rocking a spectacular mullet.
Oh, we also, before we get too far in the credits, we forgot to mention that we had a little credit cameo.
Oh, that's right. Yes, of course. The key animation supervisor, or one of the key animation
There were
supervisors.
two, I think.
There were two. One of them was Hiroyuki Okiura, who, of course, directed last week's Popcorn Poops movie, A Letter to Momo.
So that was cool to stumble on.
Isn't that neat? As far as the opening credit sequence is concerned, her birth, so to speak, this seems to be a recurring theme in a lot of the movies that we've done this month, is water birth imagery, right?
Yes, that's true.
That keeps coming up over and over again, is the water birth imagery, and it's in this movie, and it was in A Letter to Momo.
You know,
It
the
was
thing is,
also
I know a lot of Japanese women who've given birth in this country while I've been here. I have a lot of friends who've had babies over the last couple of years, and I don't know a single one that talked about water births at all. So I don't know if that's natural births here. Everybody does it
Everyone,
natural.
yeah.
You don't get any medicine. And we may have talked about this before, but my Japanese friends often make fun of me when I talk about, the prospect that I would, I don't know, be screaming or something when I was giving birth, and how they definitely think that is unnecessary and that you just deal with it silently. So they're hardcore natural birth, but water birth specifically, I don't know any women who've done that. It may be a thing.
maybe somewhere. I'm not sure.
Anyways, an important thing about this scene, I just want to clear this up for Kusanagi and Togusa
I think I know what you're about to say.
in the car here, because they're talking a lot about who the puppet master is, and I just, I wish I could just get into the conversation. They think he's probably American, and they're talking about there's a lot of this is an example of the confusing plot stuff. The conversation that goes on in this car basically amounts to this. The Puppet Master is probably American and is using an outdated virus to hack into Ghost because it's probably Colonel Malice who is giving him orders, and everyone knows Malice has access to the latest viruses. So if the Puppet Master used the latest viruses, it would make everyone suspicious of Malice. Unless the Puppet Master is not working for Malice and we're just made to think that he's using an outdated virus to just draw suspicion away from Malice so that everyone will thus become suspicious of Malice.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're talking about. Now, what I want to do is I just want to help them out and let them know that the Puppet Master's name is Andre Toulon, and that he's not American. He's a Frenchman who learned the secret of life from some Egyptian demon or something like that.
My God.
And he spends most of his time killing people with his puppets while trying to escape from the Nazis. He wouldn't be worrying about all this assassination stuff because he'd just get six-shooter or Pinhead to go in.
Save it for next month. Save it for next month.
I can't get away from it. Every time I watch this movie, that's all I think of. I'm just like, Puppet Master.
I wanted to ask you about something that came up in the first scene where they're talking, where the diplomat is talking to Nakamura, who's the chief of Section 6. The diplomat says that the programmer has pled, I guess, asylum, and he wants to defect from the country. So, according to international law, the diplomat has to ensure him safe passage out of the country, and he's allowed to do that. And he says that the affidavit for it is at the embassy. So I imagine if it's at the embassy, it's already been filed and that there's a paper trail now. So whether or not the diplomat is assassinated as he is in that scene, shouldn't the paperwork guarantee Daita's safe passage out of the country as per the international law that the diplomat was referencing?
I mean, it seems like that.
We don't have any idea of what happened to the programmer.
No, we don't know what happens to him. So we can assume that that's what happened to him.
I guess we can assume that, but we don't know this yet in the movie, but Nakamura's motivation and Section 6's motivation and all of this is to keep their secrets about developing, or maybe not their secrets, but to keep secrets about Project 2501 from getting out. That's the whole point. That's the whole reason that they do anything in this movie is Project 2501 is trying to get a hold of the Puppet Master, which they actually maybe they didn't create. I'm not sure. I'm going to say this later because I have a note on it. I'm not sure where Section 6 comes into all of this because it's the foreign minister, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that has secretly developed the Puppet Master program to hack into ghosts and to perform like diplomatic dirty work type things. But Section 6 is just a police outfit, I thought.
Yeah.
It would be like a police department, like one of the police precincts in New York City helping, a White House cabinet do some
I don't know. I thought
dealings.
Section 6 was also part of the government somehow. I thought they were more like FBI than just straight cops.
I don't know, they might be. It could be closer to something like that. They're more like, I don't know, federal or something. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how that. I mean,
that's what FBI
works.
They're federal police officers.
Yeah, so. Exactly. But because they're like, I don't know, sectioned off as far as what section they're from, Section 9, Section 6. They mentioned a Section 4, and I imagine there's a bunch of sections. It appears that they have some kind of jurisdiction. So I don't know. I'm just wondering, like, but maybe
I thought the sections were just about what they did, not about where they were.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe. Oh, I'm not sure.
That's how I interpreted it.
Oh, okay. I didn't. Okay, I didn't get that. Maybe I'm thinking too geographically, like physical space. Like this is Section 9 rather than.
I mean, it could be either way, but
yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe they explain that more in the manga or one of the few TV shows that have come out, of which I have not experienced any. This is the only Ghost in the Shell. Oh, and the sequel. I watched Innocence.
I mean, I watch standalone from time to time, but I watch it so I can go to sleep. So
it's kind of
actually
pretty solipsistic.
This time I usually say that as like a really positive thing, but actually this time I don't mean that super positively because it basically takes all the stuff in this movie that is like way too talky and is just explaining everything that's happening every single scene. That's like the whole TV show.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen the TV show, so I can't rag on it. Like, at all, and I don't want to. I've heard it's really good. I've heard from a lot of people that it's a pretty great show, but I don't know. Does it suffer from the same kind of thing that this movie does a little bit? Like, I really, really like this movie. I think it's a really great sci-fi movie, but I think that it suffers from like a lot of info dumps and
Yes.
over exposition
Yeah.
and a plot that's too,
I don't remember. I mean,
too complicated for its own good.
the standalone complex has been on my TV screen many a night when I'm getting ready for bed or watching something before I go to sleep or whatever, and I couldn't tell you what a single episode was about because I just remember lots of people talking and occasionally like things blowing up. And then, I mean, it's pretty violent, and that's a positive for me usually. But
I don't know. I think in a movie like this movie is so to me the most I get out of this movie is like in its metaphors and things like that, and its themes and meaning and all that symbolism and all that shit. And I think that in a movie that's so driven for me by that kind of stuff, the plot gets kind of tired because I don't know. I feel like I've got to focus on all this.
it's definitely my least
superfluous
favorite
stuff.
part of this movie.
The plot.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it ends up going somewhere interesting where.
And if you really, really work your brain out and you pay attention and you go back and you rewatch every line of dialogue and listen really closely and absorb all of it and succeed, then it makes sense and you appreciate the effort that went into creating this kind of plot. But it's a little much for me, honestly.
I agree. One thing I wanted to note, because we had a scene where the foreign minister's interpreter or something, which is looked like a cyborg, had been hacked by the Puppet Master, which is what puts Section 9's police unit, Kusanagi and Bato and all those guys, on the Puppet Master's trail, is that it's a woman, right? So it's a female robot that is being worked on because she's been hacked by the Puppet Master. And I think that's interesting because to me it's important to note that only women in the film are subjected to like the invasive technological or medical treatment. No men in the movie, no people with the visage of a man in this movie are subjected to anything like that that's that invasive.
Well, what do you mean? Just like physically? Because
physically, I mean,
because we have the guy in this scene. He's been hacked and he's a man.
He has, but I'm talking about there are a handful of scenes like we get
where we see someone's like brain being pulled out with wires and stuff like that.
Exactly, like you've got the scene toward the opening credit sequence where we get to see Kusanagi being built, and then we've got the scene where they're working on the foreign minister's interpreter, and they've got all these wires and stuff coming out of her head. It's really kind of grotesque. And then, of course, we've got Project 2501, or the Puppet Master. When that character finally enters physical form, it's of a woman, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it is interesting to note.
And they disassemble her.
And they disassemble her, and it's it looks like what should be a corpse, but of course it's a robot, so it's alive and talking. But yeah, only women are subjected to that in this movie. And I think that for a film that flirts with ideas of identity, including like sex and gender identity, this framing is super important contextually as a touchstone for how we continue to appropriate and exploit the female form in the real world. And that's when I said before that this movie is coming from some kind of context. Like there is a context to this film that comes from the real world. It's not purely I guess sexually egalitarian. Like it appears that way. I think its core messages are that way, but it is colored in a way that I don't know, gives it that slant, that gives it the yes, we come from a world where women are not equal to men yet, and that's something we're still working on, right? But yeah, the movie does appear outwardly egalitarian on these issues, but makes contextual references to the real world like this to color our understanding of the underlying messages, I think.
I think definitely we should note in this scene, before we get too far away from it, that it's very obvious that they modeled the design of the city off of Hong Kong.
Yeah, definitely. They never say exactly where they are aside from Newport City, and a lot of the references online seem to think that this is in Japan, but It looks like China.
Yeah.
There are...
Well, if this is Japan, then that means that future Japan abolishes kana and only uses kanji, and that is a world I do not want to live in.
Yeah, that would be a rough place for me.
That sounds like no fun whatsoever. Actually, honestly, in the future, I would see the opposite happening before that happened.
Yeah, exactly.
I would
Well,
see kanji kind of
I think-
disappearing in Japan.
I think Korea has done a similar thing. They used to have something like kanji, but they went to an all
syllabic.
syllabary.
Okay, so I'm gonna do my one bitching moment about this movie. The one thing that irritates me. I mean, the plot I think is a little much, and it gets into that. It's not really techno babbly. I mean, I guess it is a little bit, but it's more like plot babbly.
Yeah,
like political.
Yeah,
political
there's a
stuff
lot of
and
political
just,
intrigue
and
type things.
and sometimes I'm just like, I don't know who you're talking about, and I don't really care. And for a movie that has such beautiful, long, quiet scenes and then just dumps information on you, it's like beautiful, long, quiet scene or action
really
scene,
contemplative moments and
and
stuff.
then information overload. But that's not really even what I'm complaining about. I think sometimes when you go into these movies, it's just what you're going to get.
Right.
The one thing that annoys me a little bit is her socks. Her socks annoy me.
Okay.
Because she's got the invisibility thing going on, and we've seen her a couple times now go take off her clothes to go invisible. I'm fine with the naked women stuff. I think that in the West we have...
Can I press pause on that? I want to know who this guy is getting out of the helicopter.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because we've got, of course, Kusanagi just came from arresting a guy that they thought might be the puppet master, but they found that he was just another guy that's been hacked by the puppet master to do his bidding. So you've got Aramaki, who's the chief of Section 9, that's camped outside this estate, and this guy with white long hair walks up to the house and meets this fat white guy, and none of this is paid off. Like, I don't know what this is supposed to be.
What they're doing here.
Is this supposed to be like the Republic of Gavel talks or something?
That's the feeling I got.
Is that what it is? Okay, because this
But
guy clearly
they
has
don't
like
really-
Secret Service, so maybe he's not the foreign minister, because we already saw the foreign minister in a scene with Aramaki earlier. I'm not sure who this is supposed to be, but clearly Aramaki thinks that this is the puppet master, because he comments on him right here and he says that he's like a puppet himself, right? So I'm not sure like what is actually going on here, but he sends the police in, like he tells them to proceed here in a second and go into the house and raid the house. So I'm not
But we
sure.
never see what happens.
We never see what comes of that.
Again, I think that happens a lot in this movie, where we get the information about the action that happens instead of seeing what happens, which generally is a rule that you aren't supposed to mess with in storytelling. But again, like I've said, I think you kind of expect that sort of thing when you come into a movie like this, a hard sci-fi movie, as I would call it.
Yeah, it is pretty hard.
It
right?
is. It's hard sci-fi.
Yeah. All right, go ahead and continue. Your
Anyways,
bitching.
what I was saying is, I think in the West, we're a little too concerned with always sexualizing the naked body. When we see a naked body, we sexualize it constantly. And in Japan, it's very much not like that. You're in a country where people bathe together, co-ed bathing together, in all ages, and no one blinks at it, and they don't think it's weird or sexual at all. So I'm totally fine with her getting naked repeatedly throughout this movie, and I'm totally fine with the reason behind it too, because there is and it doesn't have to have a reason. It can just be that it's a beautiful scene and of showing the female body naked as a beautiful image and whatever, like the scene where the paint is peeling off her skin, the plastic coating and stuff. It's cool. It's beautiful. I'm fine with that stuff. But her invisibility thing, what irritates me is that I'm under the impression that she has to get naked because her clothes don't go invisible.
Right.
And I'm also under the impression that her face is real, maybe, or cannot go invisible for some reason.
Yeah, maybe.
Because in two scenes now, in the first scene when she was falling off the building, we saw her hand swipe over her face to make it go invisible.
Right.
And then in the last scene where she took down the guy what we just saw him getting interviewed, whatever his name is.
Oh, the trash collector guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a name.
When she took him down and she was invisible to do that, she had like a little plastic mask shield thing over her face.
Yeah, she has this thing she puts over her eyes and her face.
To presumably help her face go invisible.
I think,
Or
maybe.
Okay. So
For all the stuff this movie explains, it doesn't explain this stuff.
But then I'm guessing even though her face can't go invisible without help, her hair can go invisible without help because she's not wearing anything special over her hair. And the one thing that really matters to me is, how about them socks?
How about them socks?
How about, why does she have schoolgirl knee-high white socks on?
They're not knee-high, they're thigh-highs. They're all the way
Throughout
up.
the whole movie. Every time she goes invisible, she's got these schoolgirl socks on still. And they go invisible too. So they can make socks that go invisible, but they can't make the rest of her clothing go invisible?
I wasn't 100% convinced that is her...
You don't think they're socks? You think it's her skin?
I think it might be her legs.
But when we see the cyborg body getting made, she has regular skin coloring on her legs.
Oh, does she? She doesn't have the lines
She doesn't
there.
have socks
Oh, okay.
on when they make her. No, it's totally socks. So her socks and her weapons and her hair can go invisible, but her face and the rest of the clothing that she owns cannot go invisible. And the only reason this is
And her gun and stuff, like her gun and gun
her
holster,
weapons and stuff, they go invisible. The reason this is annoying to me is because, of the obvious reason that that's the one moment where I'm taken, my suspension of disbelief and my feeling that this was an artistic choice and this was even a technological choice goes away and is replaced by, okay, so we had a bunch of dudes who made this who wanted to see this character in schoolgirl socks with weapons on. And that really makes me unhappy.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I can blame him for that specifically, but yeah, it's kind of, I don't know.
Schoolgirl socks.
I don't know exactly.
And naked.
I don't know actually how the thermo-optic camouflage or whatever it's called, thermoptic.
But if they
I'm
can
not
make
sure
her
exactly.
socks go invisible, they could make some panties go invisible too.
I'm more concerned with the gun holster. It's big and bulky. At least the socks are close to her skin.
Yeah, but when you have a woman who is naked with guns on, that can be an adult fantasy. When you have a woman who is naked with schoolgirl socks on, that's a child fucking fantasy. So that's a problem for me.
Okay. Let's talk about the foreigners in this movie. I don't think this movie intends to say what it accidentally says about foreigners, but
but it does, though. It says something.
Every single foreigner in this movie is a criminal.
They are, yeah.
Every single one. And they make such a big deal out of immigration and stuff like that, and all these people that are trying to gain asylum and all this stuff, and how this guy named Daita is trying to gain asylum and defect out of the country, and then
they're part of a militant. He's framed for being part of a militant immigrant organization.
Oh yeah, and the people that they arrest,
the garbage man
that they arrest, and the other guy that they arrest with him that she beats up in the really cool water fight scene.
With her socks on.
They're identified as people who are part of a radical, what is it? Radical foreigner.
I just said it. A militant immigrant organization.
Militant immigrant organization.
Yeah. Well, what you have to remember is that this was made in Japan at the end of the bubble, when there were still tons of foreigners here teaching English and making bank off of it, unlike we do now. And for the first time, Japan was really, really having to deal with regulating foreigners who were not, either prisoners of war or slaves or occupying the country because of war or whatever. They were just normal nobodies trying to work and needing fair laws to live by and complaining, rightfully so, because those laws didn't exist. So...
yeah, I think that's a little bit of a problem. None of the foreigners in this movie really get a fair shake. I think. And as a foreigner living in Japan, I'm
kind of watching it and I'm kind of like, what are you guys saying?
Really?
Am I really that scary?
So anyway, we've got this great scene here between Kusanagi and Batou, and Kusanagi has just gone diving, and Batou meets her on the boat, and he inquires about her diving and says that it's really risky because she's a cyborg, and if something goes wrong and she sinks to the bottom, she will die, and that's an unnecessary risk for her to take.
And it was again dream symbolism too, her floating through the water and all that stuff.
Exactly, the water birth and all that kind of stuff. It's the same kind of thing where we've got a lot of parallel imagery going on. But yeah, there's her feelings in the water. She says she feels like hope and despair and fear. She says she feels cold, fear, loneliness, but also hope. And I think that her feelings in the water come from the same place that the puppet master will eventually talk about. The risk involved makes her feel something like mortality, right? Something that is the trait of a truly living creature. The puppet master later laments being nearly human, but without the ability to do two things specifically: reproduce and die. And I think that she's kind of trying to feel that. I think this is part of her soul searching, is that, when she goes diving, she understands that something could go wrong and she could, quote unquote, die.
Right, because she has no fear that, like, when she's fighting someone or something, like, for instance, at the end of the movie, when she tries to get into the tank, she has no problem whatsoever with ripping off her arms and leg get into the tank. It doesn't terrify her to do that. It doesn't inhibit her whatsoever. But in this case, she actually could die, essentially.
Yeah. We a couple of shots ago, we missed the hint for this week's episode. Two people got it on Twitter. Ryborg009, who can be found at rbrogan or rbrogan27, has a plug. He guessed it right, and it is Thumbstick Ninjas, which is a video game podcast apparently. And over on Facebook, good old Matthew Garrison, who's guessed a couple of these, I think, already. He didn't have a plug, I guess, or maybe he did. Hold on, let me check. I'm on it live. We'll do it live. No, he says he's got nothing, but he thanks us for a great show. So Thank you, Matthew Garrison. But yeah, back to the movie. So all of this stuff that she's doing right now, she's walking through the city. I think she's walking through the city now, but she was riding a ferry through the city, and she sees some things. She makes some observations, and we've got this great soundtrack going on. And this is what we were talking about before, the really great contemplative scenes that are really quiet and just let you kind of drink in the atmosphere and the emotions.
I didn't notice that before, that shot with all the girls running with the same umbrella.
Oh, the children. Yeah, they're students. I was just about to say something about that. All of the things that she looks at, all of the fashion, all of the, the students and everything we see, or not everything, but a lot of what we see inform these ideas of identity. The mannequins that we see toward the end of this
ensuring
sequence.
Lifelike performance is what it says on the wall right there.
She also sees a woman that looks exactly like her in a window, and she kind of reacts to it strongly. And I think that identical woman silently reinforces Kusanagi's identity conflict, making her feel inhuman and not like a unique individual, which is, part of her identity crisis. And that's what she really has, is an identity crisis. So I think that this whole sequence is really, really great. I like it, and I think it informs her character quite a bit without having a single line of dialogue. It's really nice.
But again, such a contrast to the other scenes in the movies. That's why this movie is kind of jarring for me, is because
it's so talky and then it's so quiet.
Yes, exactly. And I'm sure a lot of people out there would say that is a positive thing for this movie, that's what draws them to it, is that it is jarring because of that, and it creates a feeling because of that. I just personally could do with less of the talky scenes.
Yeah. So we just saw a blonde woman who is naked, standing in the middle of the road, get hit by a truck, and now she's waking up in a lab, and I guess she's being watched by Batou, Aramaki, and Kusanagi. And they're going to do this like electric shock therapy test that causes the woman to spasm. And Batou will explain that the woman assembled herself at a company called Megatech that is apparently contracted by the government. And they state that there appears to be a ghost in the completely synthetic body. How would you define what this movie calls a
A
ghost.
soul.
A soul? Okay,
Yeah.
a human consciousness.
Yeah.
Apparently it's something that we refer to today as the singularity. The singularity is when computing power meets human brain processing power. And at that point, apparently, we'll be able to do all sorts of things like transfer our consciousness onto a hard drive. Mm-hmm. And there are some futurists that believe that it could come as the singularity could happen as early as like 2055 or something like that, right? But apparently, in this world, the singularity has already been achieved to a degree because, of course, Kusanagi is a good example of this. We learn that she doesn't actually have a completely human brain. She has human brain cells in a cybernetic brain, but that she is mostly cybernetic. And because of that, she sees a similarity or a parallel or kind of a reflection, if you will. There's a lot of mirror imagery in this too. So she sees a reflection of herself in this cyborg that has built itself at Megatech. And we come to learn, of course, that the cyborg has the puppet master inside it, the consciousness of the puppet master. So I think that's pretty interesting, and we get some interesting character out of the fact that she thinks that she is so similar to this truly 100% artificial being, when in fact I get the impression, they never say it outright, but I get the impression that Kusanagi used to be fully human. Like,
Right, yeah. Yeah, absolutely, because in the elevator scene we're going to have Batou says to her specifically that she has human brain cells. If nothing
Right.
else, she has human brain cells still. So she was a human. I would love to see her backstory and see what happened to her.
yeah, I don't know if any of the TV shows or the manga or anything go into what exactly happened to Kusanagi, but
I hope so.
I have a feeling it was probably against her will, whatever it was. Either she was in a really bad accident or something like that. It seems like that would be the likely backstory for her. There's an interesting line in this scene where Batou says that that they all contain parts that are made by Megatech.
Which is the company that made this cyborg that has the ghost in it, even though it shouldn't.
Right. And I think that's a very humanistic thing to actually say, or it's got kind of hints of humanism in it, because Batou states that most of our main characters here contain components produced by the same company, which to me kind of points to the idea that what we point to physiologically to differentiate us is a futile task, as we are all made up of the quote-unquote same stuff, you know? And I do think that's interesting, that he drops that little hint in there. He drops that little notion that's like, well, you know, this cyborg assembled itself at Megatech, but we've all got parts from Megatech. That's a really common thing, apparently.
I love that line right there between Batou and Aramaki where Aramaki's like, what's wrong with her? Because she storms out, and he's like, she's been acting weird since we started this case, and I said all of it in my report. Don't you even read them? And you get the impression that no, he doesn't read them.
Yeah, he is kind of a salty old like police chief type, right? In fact, they've got a couple of
But
these.
also
Here's
like
another
a
one,
mad
Nakamura.
scientist kind of thing going on too, like with his hair and everything, and the kind of division that he works in.
Yeah.
And then we just finished the scene also, but Aramaki also starts talking about the people who monkey around in his brain going through regular psychiatric evaluations, but the people who make those evaluations also being just human.
Right.
And just lots of interesting commentary about how far technology can go and how perfection can even be perceived, if it is even possible.
Yep.
If we're still to be human, and what's better.
I think that the thing that has the plot thread that has arisen in the, I guess, what is approaching the last act of this movie is or becomes Kusanagi's central motivation. And her central motivation in the last almost half of this movie is that she wants to as she says, dive into the cyborg that built itself, the one that contains the ghost of the puppet master.
And this, of course, is paralleling her real life diving and how both are dangerous but necessary to help her understand her own identity.
Absolutely. And she has a really strong motivation for wanting to dive into the cyborg, I think, because it is I don't think it's for Section 9. I don't think it's a very pragmatic thing. I think it's absolutely selfish.
Just for her. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I feel like she wants to take a look inside to see what makes the cyborg different from her as sort of a self-affirming exercise. Mm-hmm. I think that she needs that because she's struggling with this identity crisis, and because she sees such a similarity between herself having so many cybernetic parts, having so many synthetic parts, that she feels like if she can jump into this being that is 100% cybernetic, that she can find something to affirm her existence as a human being, you know?
And of course, this all comes after we had her monologue on the boat where she was actually physically dying, and she's talking about her identity and all those parts that make her up. And she mentions memories and access to information and things like that as being a part of her identity. And that's something that 2501 is going to talk about specifically the memory stuff and how important memories are to our identities, and how when you make a copy and those memories are just copied, it's not a real reproduction. It is just a copy because memory should be erased.
Exactly. It's not genetic. It's just a copy and paste mechanism where you're just creating the same thing. I don't know. I guess
he desires real reproduction so that variation,
biological reproduction,
right?
And that's what the Puppet Master ultimately wants. Is he wants something. Although he is a digital creature, and a sentient digital creature, but because he is a digital creature, he desires the variety and the what he calls the genetic memory that the human race has. And he feels like if he reproduces himself, the only thing he's going to be doing is making a copy. But ultimately, when he wants to fuse his consciousness with Kusanagi's, he feels like he's creating something that is truly a more biological-ish offspring, right?
And again, that idea of merging, and again, bringing it back to that wedding song at the beginning of when in the birth sequence.
Oh, yeah.
I think it definitely, that concept of merging there, and the concept of merging that happens when people marry, is definitely a through line in this movie.
So right now, where we're at the movie, Nakamura, who is the chief of Section 6, has arrived to take the program out of the woman cyborg with a signed document from the foreign minister. Now, if you'll remember, I said that their motivation in all of this is to keep the fact that they developed this Project 2501, this dirty diplomatic
secret
thing. They're trying to keep these secrets hidden. So the foreign minister is obviously, I think that their place in this is the foreign minister is really using them for muscle, or using them to enact the things that maybe he can't do by himself. But I think that Section 6 is ultimately ignorant as to what exactly Project 2501 is. I don't think Nakamura really has a hand in this game. You know what I mean? I think they're being used to the foreign minister's ends.
I think you're totally right. Also, I think that his fingers on his fingers are super awesome.
Oh yeah, we spend so much time talking about symbolism and things like that on this show that we don't really geek out about movies a whole lot. But
yeah, but that deserves geeking out over those.
Totally.
When his fingers like spread out and then like his fingers get little fingers,
a million little fingers, and start typing a million miles. It's awesome.
Fantastic.
It's super cool. That's the kind of shit that makes me go, oh, I love sci-fi.
Yeah.
It should be more about like the human condition and shit
oh
like
no,
that.
let's not. No. Mm-mm.
Crazy fingers.
Crazy fingers on fingers.
Crazy fingers is the best thing. But yeah, so they've arrived, and Togusa, we just saw a scene where Togusa looked at the security footage of Nakamura and Dr. Willis, who's the guy that's the crazy fingers guy, entering. And he contacts Kusanagi and expresses some suspicion that Nakamura and Willis may have come in with camouflaged men. And then, of course, Kusanagi suspects that Section 6 is up to something at that point. Now, Togusa is being useful, of course, but these moments are really, I think, prime opportunities for the story to pay off how his being non-specialized is a
Makes him
value to the
special?
team. Exactly. I want to see how him being non-specialized makes him special.
How is it that he is human? Apparently, from Kusanagi, we understand that the reason he's on the team is that he is human and that
Right.
he can provide something. He can contribute to their team something that they cannot because he's human. And I really want to see him do something that's superhuman.
I do too. I don't feel like anything he does in the movie is uniquely human or anything that feels like he's exploiting that advantage that Kusanagi, that he was recruited for. Or we get the feeling that he was. The one thing he does mention is that the two men who walked in didn't look like they were the types to drive themselves.
Right. And they both came. They had two cars, and
Yeah, it rings as a somewhat unique observation. I think.
well, yeah, because we're playing into human personality, into pride and stuff. That he looks at these guys, he looks at their suits, he looks at the way they hold themselves, and he says, they'd be too proud, they'd be too up inside themselves to drive themselves around.
It's not really the book-ended character moment that I'm looking for.
Very true.
Batol get like
Kind of got to search for it.
Batol is very protective, it seems, of Kusanagi, and I feel that his character gets a nice book ending at the end of the movie where he has to watch Kusanagi walk away like almost literally as a child. And he knows he can't protect her even though she has the appearance of someone who needs more protecting than she ever has before, right?
Yeah.
And he lets her have the keys to a car and all that kind of stuff.
And we get that real moment of how he truly feels about her when he says her first name too.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like Batol gets more of a nice book ending for his character arc.
I guess Togusa is a smaller character,
Yeah, I guess so.
side not just in actual physical size, but he does have a mullet, so
I don't know. I guess as far as character arcs go, mullet trumps arc. So he's still got something. I don't know. Adamaki doesn't really have much of an arc, does he?
no, not
really.
at all.
Just
No.
salty old man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
not
he's a
much- no.
stalwart, but that's okay.
So we had some very thematically important dialogue going on
Yes.
where we realized that the ghost inside this woman that we found naked on the road has been nicknamed him,
Yes, yeah, I
even
have a
though
note
the
about
sex
that
of the
too.
person who infiltrated the cyborg is unknown. So that was the moment where I was watching this and I was like, oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
Gender identity.
Gen-
Get it. I see it.
So Dr. Willis presumed the male gendered object pronoun him, right? It's also interesting to me that Puppet Master's voice is also particularly masculine. Masculine, excuse me. So the fact that it chooses to build itself as a woman is a fairly pronounced acknowledgement of transgenderism as part of the quote unquote. I mean, we're talking about robots, but the human condition, because that's really what we're talking about, right? Yeah, I feel that even though the Puppet Master appears to be, male or whatever, by all accounts, he's assumed to be male. He has a male voice. He builds a female body for himself. So I think that's really interesting. I haven't seen Ghost in the Shell 2.0. Ghost in the Shell 2.0 is like an updated version of this with like some CG elements and
yeah.
stuff. I haven't seen it, but I have heard that one of the changes they make is giving the Puppet Master a female voice, which I assume speaks simultaneously with the existing male voice, right? Without having seen it, I can say I think I kind of like this idea because it introduces some gray area in
What,
there
a
that's
female
better.
and male voice at the same time?
At the same time.
Okay, that's cool.
See, I think that's pretty cool. I like that. Although we do have a female body, so the female body and the male voice, I think, get across a similar kind of, gray area type message. But I don't know. I like the gray area. Gray area is always better than black and white. So that's just me, though.
There were some nice lines in that scene that we really didn't talk about, but like they talk about Section 6 luring the Puppet Master into a body and then killing the original body,
Which is a lie.
Which is a lie because he never had an original body. But the Puppet Master describes himself. He says he never had a human body and that he's a sentient, she is a sentient being who demands asylum. And when he's accused of just being a program designed for self-preservation, he then accuses human DNA of being the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. And
it's nice.
It's great. He's making a really interesting a futurist type of parallel to things that we've accepted as part of evolutionary science forever, for as I guess since Darwin, right?
These robots here, the way their eyes twitch when we get a close up on them, it's really unsettling.
I think it is interesting because we did talk about just for a second that the fact that it's not a fact. Section 6 says that they lured the Puppet Master's ghost into this body, which is a lie.
Right.
Because the Puppet Master comes to life and says there was no dead body. I've never had a body. I am completely digital. I've roamed the net and I became sentient by basically hacking into all of these different kinds of people and basically learning how to be human, right? Mm-hmm. Which is not said explicitly, but that's basically what it is, I think. And it is interesting that Aramaki still doesn't believe. After that scene, he's talking to Kusanagi, and he's still talking about what Section 6 said. He's still saying that Section 6 forced the ghost into the robot after the robot said itself. It says, no, I am me. I have always been digital. I have never had a human body. But Aramaki still doesn't recognize Puppet Master as a sentient being worthy of that trust, because he continues to espouse Section 6's lie that they coerce the Puppet Master's ghost in the cyborg, despite the fact that Puppet Master told them that he never had a body. That, like, to me, that rings so close to like how culture today, we unfortunately don't listen to women talking about their experiences. We don't listen to trans women talking about their experiences. And, that's why we end up with facets of rape culture that say things like, well, if she was dressed that way, she was asking for it. Right. That's what we get, is that we're not listening to these people's experiences, and instead we're just assuming the worst of them as people, even though they're victims. And
right.
That's kind of how I feel about the Puppet Master in this case, is that he or she has experienced these things and is trying to express his or herself, and no one will listen. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where we are. And that's sad.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that, even for 1995, that's a pretty progressive idea that comes through pretty strongly.
Well, and I think that one of the messages that's being spoken throughout this movie is that your body plays a part in your identity. It absolutely does. Yeah. But, however, it is not the most important part by far.
Right.
But even some lines as specific as "bodies are a dime a dozen." We'll get another from Megatech. Just right out there, they repeatedly say, and the way they play with gender and the way they make it a non-issue, a non-important thing, a factor that doesn't matter even in reproduction. Even in reproduction, the gender doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So it's definitely saying that when it comes to identity, that gender and that the physical human body specifically, not gender, but the physical human body doesn't matter as much as memories and access to information and experience.
There's even some specific language that the film uses that had a kind of a particularly enlightening effect on me. Characters refer to what Section 6 has done to the Puppet Master at this point as kidnapping. Mm-hmm. They refer to it as kidnapping. And every time someone says kidnapping, I'm thinking, who was kidnapped? Who was kidnapped? Because to me, to kidnap something means that you have stolen a living thing. You have stolen a life form. Mm-hmm. And when they use the word kidnap to describe what has happened to the Puppet Master, which is a robot, and I'm guilty of this. It's like the movie is indicting me personally, is that I realize, oh my God, I'm not thinking of the fact that they've kidnapped the Puppet Master because I don't see the Puppet Master as a living thing.
Right.
And that's my shortcoming, right?
Yeah.
So once I realized that, I don't know, it was this weird kind of reflexive thing that happened to me when I was like, I don't understand who's been kidnapped, because that's exactly what was going through my head. And then when I realized, oh, right, of course, the puppet master, they stole the puppet master. I know what's happening in the plot. I don't know. It's just that language threw me, and I don't know, pointed a big finger at me as an audience member. I thought that was interesting.
So Togusa, I don't think it really, his story doesn't culminate in what I want it to. I don't
Right.
feel like I have that moment where I'm like, he's a human and that makes him special. But one of the things that, again, like validates that point that we're trying to make, but we never really quite make, is his gun, is his weapon being this old gun that everyone mocks him for,
Yeah.
but he hangs on to anyways, and he continues to use, even though he has options of better weaponry. It's the same as his body. He has essentially an old model body because he doesn't have a bunch of cybernetic parts, but he hangs on to it anyways.
Right.
It's a cool character.
It's his old trusty sidearm.
It's a cool
It is-
character, and I don't feel like we quite...
Yeah,
maybe,
we don't.
Maybe this movie needed another 10 minutes or
We don't,
so.
Yeah, we don't really get the bookend for that. Yeah, and that's the thing. And here's something that I said. I've said this a lot on this show. Whenever we do a movie that's like 90 minutes or less, I always praise it for being 90 minutes or less. This movie is like an hour and 20 minutes long, which to me is just like, oh, awesome. It's short and sweet. I can sit down in one sitting, not
watch
get tired,
it a couple
not have to
times
take a
for
break.
research and not feel exhausted.
Exactly. And I usually have things to say about movies that I think are overlong, negative things. I rarely say this, but I don't think this movie is long enough.
Yeah.
And you said like an additional 10 minutes. I think this movie could easily go like an hour 45, because there is so much plot that's just crammed
And
into
I
this
just
thing.
want it to be spread out a little. Just spread out that
I
plot
want
a
to
little
spread
bit.
it out a little bit more. I want to explore some of these characters just a little bit more.
I mean, because if we spread out the plot a little bit and you show me some stuff that happens, then you don't have to have scenes like, what was the one where Kusanagi walks into the room and he's like, I guess I'll bring the latecomer up to speed, and then Bateau just vomits
Info dump,
all
yeah.
of this information out of his mouth hole.
It's slightly better, but it's just it's just sneezing distance away from as you know.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Which is
And
a big sin.
I don't want that to exist in the movie that I'm watching. So if you add a little more time to this movie and you spread out that information, maybe show me some of the stuff that's happening instead of catching me up to speed all the time. I feel like they're constantly catching me up to speed. That, and then you could get a little more time with some of the side characters to really delve into their story
Yep.
a little bit more.
How do you think this movie looks for being a piece of animation from 1995?
Oh, I love it.
It looks great, doesn't it?
I love the way this movie looks.
I think it's got a really, really...
I love her character design too.
Yeah, I do too.
I love how
She just exudes strength.
she does. How she's super feminine, like when we have those naked scenes, but
She has an attractive body, yeah.
it is kind of a Barbie doll body though, where like you don't what I mean, but
she doesn't have any vulva, so...
right. That's like every time I see her naked body, I
Or
always
not
think
vulva,
of
labia? Is it
I always
she doesn't
think-
have any labia?
I always think of a Barbie doll because it's just like smooth, rounded parts.
Yeah.
So
no labia, no pubic hair.
But I like that she's got curves. I like that she has a deep voice. I like that at times when she's doing strong, exerting things, we see her muscles and we see her look kind of masculine.
She is. Her voice is performed by a woman, a voice actress named Atsuko Tanaka, who is kind of known for doing the weathered, raspy, more masculine female voice, the strong female voice,
The
if you
adult
will.
woman.
The adult, yes, the adult woman. And then for a second, at the near the end of the movie, when she is transferred into her younger body, the new body that Bateau gets her, she has a young child's voice for just a few lines, and that's actually Maya Sakamoto, who has done lots of stuff. He told me in The Vision of Escaflowne. She also sang the theme songs for that, I think. Pretty sure. I mean, she's also a super famous voice actress. So they got Atsuko Tanaka and Maya Sakamoto to do the same care. Two super famous voice actresses to do the same character in the same movie.
One thing that we've kind of missed now, so you have to go back with your brain to think about it. But
I'll try.
I just wanted to
Might hurt.
to throw in there. It probably will. I just wanted to throw in there that the style of her clothing throughout this movie, like in the scenes where she's in the lab and stuff, and she's like in her casual getup.
Yeah.
So in Japan, style is like a decade behind generally.
Yeah.
And then also it's way crazy out there in the future in a place that no one hopefully will ever go.
Doesn't she have like a big sweater vest?
Well, she's
Or
got,
something like that?
you can see the
Not a
decade
sweater vest,
behind
but-
bit because this is in the mid 90s, but she's got like super tight black leggings and big heavy shoulder pad filled
Right. She looks like a
neon colored
linebacker.
jacket.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Japan. That's just Japan. This was 95, not 85.
It's like, what's with the life preserver? Dork thinks he's gonna drown. So, sorry. So yeah, we're in the climax of the movie, the one of the final scenes, where Kusanagi is facing off against a, I guess it's a Section 6 robot. It's a Section 6 robot that is protecting the
tank, you mean?
the tank. Yeah, it's a Section 6 tank that is protecting the car that contains the Puppet Master. Now, I'm not sure exactly why she's having to fight the tank. If Section 6 is like, why is the tank protecting this car?
Oh, we just saw the fossils on the wall, the dinosaur fossils.
Why is the tank protecting this car?
Because it was programmed to by Section 6.
But Section 6 flies in and destroys the Puppet Master later in this scene. So if they were going to destroy the Puppet Master, why wouldn't they just have the tank destroy the Puppet Master?
I don't know. Maybe at this point they weren't going to destroy the Puppet Master. They were still trying to salvage it.
No, that doesn't come across at all.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That's
It's true. It's a good point.
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure who this robot belongs to. I don't know if it's the Puppet Master trying to protect himself.
But see, like, look,
or...
these guys are still trying to protect the Puppet Master at this point, too.
Yeah, and they're working. They're definitely working for Section 6 because they're the ones that got away with.
I think it's at the point where they realize that, like, she's, you know, like it's over, that Section 9 has the Puppet Master. It's at that point that they just decide to destroy it.
This scene right here, this moment right here, where she's trying to open the tank and all the muscles in her body are freaking out, and she ends up ripping off her arms.
Yeah, fantastic.
It's wow. It's just wild. This is the this is the kind of shit that ADV was talking about when they were like, anime, it's not kid stuff. Anime and manga, can you handle it? It's super extreme and definitely not for kids.
Oh my god. You make me want to leave Japan right now.
Hey, that's not Japan's fault. That's America.
It's true.
That's America's
Okay,
deal.
then you make me want to stay here and never go back.
So anyway, yeah. Did we ever quite figure out exactly what Section 6's place in this was? I think that we basically landed on they were being used by the foreign ministry as muscle or something.
I don't know. I guess so. I mean, that would make sense thematically with the whole puppet thing, right? If Section 6 is just a puppet of the foreign ministry.
Yeah, exactly. That would parallel the ideas that have been.
But this cyborg, or not cyborg, this program 2501 has gotten out of control.
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like this movie can be difficult to understand if you're not paying attention to every little thing. But the thing that does manage to carry this movie is character motivations. Mm-hmm. And if you can identify character motivations, then you'll know exactly what's happening basically all the time. If we break down what Kusanagi's main character motivation is throughout this movie, is that at first she has this identity crisis thing, and then once the Puppet Master presents himself as like a physical cybernetic body, Kusanagi's motivation at that point is to dive into this body and to find out what makes it different from her so that she can kind of self-affirm her humanity, right? It's an existential type crisis thing. And then, of course, the Puppet Master. The Puppet Master's whole goal is to reproduce and die, which we're going to find out in this scene right here when she dives into the Puppet Master and he begins speaking through her body. And the way the Puppet Master intends to do that is by combining its consciousness with Kusanagi's, like we talked about before, and reproducing a more type of, I guess, biologically variable digital creature.
Right.
Right. And then after that, he will be able to successfully die, I suppose. That's how it's framed to us. So those are the motivations for the main protagonist and antagonist. Now you've got like Section 6 and Nakamura, and their whole thing the entire time is the fact that they are being used by the foreign ministry as muscle to cover up the fact that the foreign ministry developed this project, Project 2501, which was a ghost, basically a computer program that would hack into ghosts and, I don't know, do things like assassinations and other kinds of political dirty work. Diplomatic dirty work, if you will. So yeah, I think basically that's kind of the through lines of the key players in this whole thing. And if you can follow that through, you'll have a good time.
Completely talking about something different. Okay, the 2 points I want to make. One is that the tree on the wall, we didn't talk about it when we were seeing it get shot up by the tank. But there's a tree on the wall that has writing on it in Latin.
Yes.
And this is very obviously, to me, an evolution tree depicting the Latin names of different genera and the genera that branched off from them. The one at the top is hominis. And I looked it up, and it's maybe like a mite or a bacteria or something like that. The one type of hominis I found is called Mycoplasma hominis, and it's the smallest free-living organism known. I don't know why it's at the top of the tree. Maybe that's my broken understanding of all things science.
Sure.
But when I was reading stuff written by people who their brains work better than mine do, and they know more about biology and stuff like that, they said that the evolution tree is a little bit messy.
Oh, okay.
In the one that we see. But anyways,
it's also shot up.
Yes.
There's lots of bullet holes in it.
But anyways, regardless of whatever specifics the evolution tree says, the fact that it's there and that we have these dinosaur fossils on the wall and stuff is just all just like right in your face. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about Darwinism. We're talking about evolution. We're talking about variation over time, and how this concept that Kusanagi has spoken of before, especially when she talks to Togusa, about how when you reach computer perfection, that there's no more variation, and that means that's your weakness right there. Your
right.
weakness is that everyone is the exact same level of perfect.
It's hyper specialized. Yeah.
Right, and that breeds problems. When it fails, when one fails, all of them fail, and how to succeed, like the next step in computer and technological evolution is to somehow become varied, which is what PM, the Puppet Master, is going to do by merging with her. So the other thing, this is totally different, less important topic. Do you think Batou has a thing for Kusanagi?
Yeah, I think so.
Like a romantic thing?
Yeah, I think so, probably.
I think so because of the one thing that, besides Motoko is her name, right?
Yeah.
Besides him calling her first name out and being totally upset about it when he thinks that she's been killed. Besides that, also the fact that he is the only person in this entire movie that reacts at all when she's naked.
Yeah,
and he reacts every time. He looks away or he covers her up with his jacket. 2 times he covers her up with his jacket.
Yep.
He is affected by seeing her naked.
He is, and I think that I think that you can infer that he has feelings for Kusanagi, but I think what that really feeds into more specifically is just his protectivism of her. Like he's very protective of her, which I mentioned before. But yeah, I think that probably feeds into romantic feelings for him. I bet the TV show goes into that more because Bateau and
yeah, they're both in it.
They're both in the show, right?
Togusa is too, I think.
Yeah, Togusa is too. I know they're both in in Innocence, the sequel, which I haven't seen in a long time either, and I can't really remember much about it. But
I love Bateau and Kusanagi. I love it when they're together. I love the way they look when they're together. They're so cool.
Yeah, this scene right here is really unsettling. What with a lot of the more cybernetic beings in the movie don't actually blink a whole lot, which kind of gives this feeling of I don't know,
inhuman.
It's inhuman or like doll-like or something like that.
Well, like I said, those girls sitting at Adamaki's station when he's giving orders and stuff, and the cyborg girls who all look the same are sitting there, and they don't blink, and their eyes just like twitch around really fast, and it's super unsettling.
Yeah. These helicopters that come in and end up attacking them are pretty cool because they've got these wings on them that make them apparently look like angels when they're flying down, as we saw in that shot. But yeah, that's pretty cool. And of course we just saw Bateau reach out and cover up Matoko's head so that
with his arm,
so that her brain wouldn't be damaged, and he lost his arm, and her head is going to end up being okay. And he can attach it. I don't know. Does he attach her head to a smaller body, or does she?
I don't know, because it looks like the same
looks like
head.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
But you'd think that it would be like too big.
Bigger?
Yeah, too big for the little kid body. That'd be really super unsettling if they went like full on. No, this is just your old like adult sized head on this little body.
Yeah.
So, just good luck dealing with that.
Some of the lines that I thought were really interesting in Kusanagi's conversation with the puppet master were things like, "Can you guarantee I will remain myself?" Speaking about after they merge, and he says, "There is no such thing. You wanting to remain yourself is what limits you."
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of an anti-evolution, like a personal evolution thing, not like the long-term implications of I don't know, genetic diversity and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Darwinism. Yeah, but it's like it's a personal thing. It's that I want to be myself. It's like, well, 10 years from now, I won't be who I am now. So
the first time I saw this movie and I saw this scene, the way that she was shot there, where she looked so pale and sickly.
Yeah.
I thought that we were getting a
vampire movie.
No, an origin story.
Oh shit! Okay.
I thought we were getting an origin story of what happened to her original body.
As a sick little girl or something like that? Oh, interesting. That could be what it is. That could be exactly what that image is supposed to be, is a reference to the fact that she was maybe a sick child or something like that, and that's why she had to have so many cybernetic enhancements.
I love the first thing that she says to him is she tells him to apologize for the body that she's in.
Oh, yeah.
And he tells her it was the only thing he could find on the black market and that it's not his taste. My gut response is, thank you, but unfortunately it's someone's taste. However, her next comment showing that she is no longer a child, metaphorically speaking, because of the knowledge she now has, proved that this character design change, making her look like a child, had significant meaning concerning the confusion that can come from trying to find your personal identity when you are paired with a body that you feel isn't suited to your mind.
Right. Such
as a man stuck in a woman's body, a fully functional mind in a paralyzed or physically impaired body, a person who values physical beauty stuck in an ugly body, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. She's paired with a body that she feels doesn't fit her. Yes. And that's part of the message of what confuses our identity.
Yep. I did have a note on what the puppet master was talking about in that last scene, where it was, showing us these shots of the evolution tree that you mentioned and you talked about a little bit, and talking about, diversity and why, like his motivations behind why he wants to reproduce. And they never use the terminology, but I believe that what the puppet master is really talking about there when he suggests the genetic memory, quote unquote, of humans, he actually means memes. Now, Richard Dawkins coined the term, and the real meaning of memes, not like not like image macros on the internet. Richard Dawkins actually coined the term in his 1976 book, The Selfish Gene.
So you're saying we're not about to talk about one does not simply
No,
and
no,
stuff?
we're not. Wikipedia describes a meme as a unit for carrying cultural ideas, symbols, or practices that can be transmitted from one mind to another through writing, speech, gestures, rituals, or other imitable phenomena with a mimicked theme. To me, that is exactly like, because what the Puppet Master is talking about, he says genetic memory, he refers to genes, but genes are a very specific thing. I think what he's really talking about is memes, is this idea that human beings have been able to create and continue the advancement of our culture and technology and civilization based on the passing down of intangible ideas. Memory, this human memory, as he refers to it, right? So I think that's kind of that's another interesting button on that topic.
A couple more points that I want to hit before we're totally done with this. So she references, she starts saying the whole, when I was a child, my speech was that of a child thing, which is Corinthians 13:11.
It's from the Bible.
And this actually, I get why this reference is being made, specifically because of what I said about identity and her being stuck in a child's body and et cetera, and her now having no ignorance because we can presume she merged with the Puppet Master based on her last line, which is, where shall I go? The net is vast and infinite.
Right.
And we can presume that Puppet Master successfully merged with her, and now she's like super sentient or something, like that. Not sentient,
she's gonna
super
go and
aware.
You get the feeling that she's going to go and keep that promise that the Puppet Master said that she would keep, and that's that she's going to go out and spread their genes across the net and continue the propagation of this diverse digital species. So
she's been exposed to tons of information and thus is no longer ignorant, thus is no longer naive, thus is no longer the metaphorical child, even though she's in this body of a child, and thus the identity thing, whatever. The point I want to make is that I hate that verse in the Bible, that I really hate it, and that childhood, I think keeping childhood alive in us that I know this movie is not making this point, but I think we should always encourage the other side of that keeping childhood alive in us is incredibly important. People who take themselves too seriously, forcing themselves to forget the things that brought them simple pleasure in life, I think that's a problem. I don't think that it's something to be proud of to forget the naivety and simplicity of childhood. I understand that being ignorant and naive is not a positive thing, but knowing the world as an adult and still finding a reason to be happy, to have hope, that's harder to do, and thus I think is braver. And
it's very existential.
So,
yep. Would you say that this has a happy ending?
I don't know, because I feel like she didn't really find her identity. I feel like she just kind of converged with someone else's.
She just became a new identity.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of
right. You say that, and then the scene when she's diving and she says when she reaches the surface, she feels like she's becoming a new person.
Yeah.
So that's probably the message that they're...
It is. I don't know. There's something like, I don't know that it's meant to be this way, but that last shot of her standing and looking over the city, just the way her eyes look or something, there's something sinister about it. There's something diabolical. Like I feel like we're supposed to be on the Puppet Master's side for being a sentient being that only wants to do these basic things like reproduce and die. And despite the way the Puppet Master might go about it, which I don't think the Puppet Master actually does anything too terribly bad, does? I guess he does.
No, I mean,
hack
he
some
is
people.
hacking into
He is
people's
hacking
brains
people and doing stuff
taking
like
away
that.
their memories
yeah.
and stuff. That's pretty.
That is true.
Diabolical.
That is true. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like we're supposed to side with the Puppet Master in some way, but when they converge and become the one being at the end, and she seems to be almost more emotionless. I don't know. There's something dark there. That it's bittersweet. Like, she's okay, but is she okay? It's very, I don't know. It's tough. But yeah, I like this movie a lot. I think it's good sci-fi.
I do too. I like it. It's good hard sci-fi.
Yeah.
And hard sci-fi is not the sci-fi I typically go to.
Right.
But if I'm gonna watch hard sci-fi, then I would watch this happily.
Yeah, it's pretty strong. I think this is one of the better movies we watched this month. I would say that Perfect Blue is probably above this for me, though. So, what was your favorite thing we watched this month?
Momo.
Momo. Okay. All right, I'll let Momo be the final word. Now that we've reached the end of the movie, we'd like to read a 5-star review that we received on iTunes. If we had a 5-star review to read from iTunes, I told you last week. It's up to you that we have a 5-star review to read on the show.
We have no we're not saying that we have a bunch of 1-star reviews, and I mean, we have no reviews.
We have no other reviews. We don't. So it's up to you. Our fate is in your hands as far as reviews go. So please do that.
If you would like to leave us a rating and review on iTunes, we'd really appreciate it. That's all we're saying here. And if it's 5-star, we're going to read it right now. During this time when we otherwise have nothing to read.
As always, you can find us on our website at popcornpoops.com. Please follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook if you'd like to receive updates about the show, including our weekly movie still identification game. If you have a question, comment, or movie request for us, you can reach us on our social media outlets or by emailing us at thepopcornpoops@gmail.com.
So, Dusty, April 14th is my birthday.
What do you want?
Didn't know.
Right, what do you want for your birthday?
I want to pick the next theme.
Okay. Go for it.
You can probably guess what that means. We are going to be doing a whole month of the most wonderful, disgusting, unbearable piles of bad horror movie trash that's out there. And we're kicking it off with one of my favorites, Juan Piquer Simon's 1988 film, Slugs the Movie. A masterpiece. If you have any questions about that movie or related topics you'd like us to discuss, please contact us through social media or email.
Thanks for listening, and until next time, take care.
Bye-bye.
We are the Popcorn Poops.
Hello, everybody. On behalf of Nick, Joe, and Vern, we would like to invite you back for a brand new season of the As You Watch podcast.
On our upcoming season, we will be talking about franchises, trilogies, and series of movies that you will recognize and some that you may not.
We will also continue to post fun and insightful interviews with many people in the world of entertainment, as well as feature a lot of great guests from other sites and podcasts.
So be sure to check us out on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Podomatic, and on Facebook.
And don't forget to check out our older episodes on our site, asyouwatch.wordpress.com.